Hello there, whiskey fans. Welcome to Whisky Waffle. My name is Ingrid Anna Jones, and today's topic is how to drink whiskey. You probably see that people have whiskey in lots of different ways, whiskey on the rocks or whiskey in a mixer. Now, I'm not going to be talking about cocktails. That's a different kind of way of drinking whiskey. This is sort of how you drink the neat stuff, really. So, to illustrate today, I'm going to be using this 12-year-old Redbreast, which is an Irish pot still whiskey, and this comes in at 40% ABV. I would always say try it like 3 times, and I'm not saying big sip. This is small sips. You know, you've not got loads. You don't need to have loads. This is the point. You can take a nice small sip and just kind of let your palate get used to it. And there will always be a touch of the alcohol, or, you know, because it's a strong drink. But your taste buds will start to kind of go, oh, okay, right, what else have I got there? And you'll be able to pick out other flavors, but you might not pick them out on that first sip. It might take 3 or 4. You might be that you drink a lot of whiskey and actually it takes you 2. And, you know, you're fine. So it's down to you. It's very subjective, and that's okay. So as you can see, I've had a couple of sips there. I've got my taste buds used to it. Now, you might be somebody who likes to mix, or you always have it with ice, or you always have it with some water, and that's fine. That's one thing I'm going to say is, you know, how you like to drink your whiskey is how you like to drink your whiskey. I would say start neat. If you like it on the rocks, get as in that means with ice. For those that don't know, get your ice, get it in a different glass. You can add it if you want to, but if it's a new whiskey to you, don't just whack it in and shove the whiskey over, because actually you don't know what the whiskey tastes like, and you're watering it down, and it might be too much. Just try it as it is. The other thing, especially with ice, is of course ice is cold, and when it comes to whiskey, sort of room temperature actually is often good, because the flavors and things, if you get something too cold in there, that's going to alter some of those flavors, and it's going to sort of subdue them a bit. So when you put ice in there, what you're actually doing is subduing some of those flavors. So it's probably good not to necessarily put too much ice in, and especially at the start. When you've had a couple of sips of it and you've got a bit more used to the flavors, you can add some water. That would be my first thing. So not ice, water. And I would say you are better with some kind of mineral water, so bottled mineral water, only because it tends to be a little bit purer. It doesn't have some of the chemicals in that you get in tap water. So sort of a bottled water is going to be better, and still water, not sparkling. But you really don't need very much, so this isn't going to be like you're not using bottles and bottles or anything, but I'll show you. So I have some water here that's from a bottle, and I use a pipette to do mine if I want some water in there. Now you might want to add water. One, it can open up the aroma, it can change the flavour of the whiskey. I've run some whiskey tastings whereby the guys haven't really liked the whiskey, they've added some water, and suddenly it kind of grows on them. So it does change slightly. So you can see here I'm adding, yeah, and that's it. I'm serious. You really don't need to add very much, just a little bit like that. Just remember, you can always add more. You can't take it out, obviously, and it is possible to drown your whiskey. So if you whack too much water in there, you will drown it. And different whiskies will take different amounts of water. That's the other thing. So if it's a new whiskey to you, try a few drops like that first. Now, if you don't have a pipette like I've just used, you can just use a spoon, like a teaspoon. So I've got a teaspoon with some water here. I'm adding more water now, but so you'll see I've just put, there you go, just a little bit. It is possible to do just a little bit even with a spoon. So I would say do that if you haven't got, you know, like a pipette or something like that. So just let it kind of roll around a little bit, let it sort of mix in. And you might find that the nose changes quite a bit because often the water can open up the bouquet, as they call it, so the aromas and the smell. So have another smell before you go ahead and drink it. And what you'll find is there's likely to be a slight change in it. Now, you've actually, by adding the water, you're just reducing that ABV a bit. So that alcohol bite, if it's got that at all, should start to subdue if it's something that you're not liking too much. Don't just think, oh, I don't like this, it's not going to work for me. Try adding water first before you do that. I've got some whiskies, a couple of very, very heavily peated whiskies. They're quite strong, I think like 48%, and actually I prefer them with a little bit of water. It just makes a slightly easier drink. I enjoy it a little bit more for me. Other people drink it neat, it's fine, but try it neat like I'm showing you first, and then add that water. And that will give you a bit of an idea. So that's a great way of doing it. The other thing is that people like to do is add ice. Now, I know whiskey on the rocks is really common, it's famous, it's in films. If you have a whiskey, you have it on the rocks. That's what a lot of people do. And if you drink your whiskey quite quickly, then it possibly can work because the ice doesn't have a chance to melt. But one of the issues with sort of adding ice is that it does melt. So you are then going to have all that ice melting into your whiskey, and you can't control the amount of water and the way that that's watering down your whiskey. So again, some people like that. I know an uncle of mine who that's how he likes to drink it, and he likes the fact that it's stronger at the start and then it kind of waters down, and that's how he enjoys it. So that's fine. But if you're unsure, you don't have to add ice. I never add ice actually, because I don't like to be out of control about how much water goes in, because you get to a point for me where I'm suddenly like, oh, it's just a bit of flavored water now. It's lost it. I kind of need some more whiskey in there. So I generally will go for water, not ice, because I control it better. But yes, if that's what you want to do, you can add ice. Obviously, there are ways around that. There's things called whiskey stones. So it's got some whiskey stones here. They're like bits of granite, generally, and you pop them in the freezer so they're cold, and then you put them in your whiskey. Now, obviously, with something like this, it's not going to melt. So you get the desired effect of chilling the whiskey without the unknown, uncontrolled part of the ice melting. So that can work if that's something you like. Again, I have whiskey stones, but I'm not a biggest fan. Again, because it chills the whiskey, and of course, as we said earlier, that changes the flavor profile. There are some whiskies out there now, I've seen a couple more recently, where they are actually made to be drank cold. So the flavor profile the distillery is after is that it's cold, so you put it in the freezer or in the fridge or whatever, and then you pour it from there. And actually I've had a couple of those and they're very nice. It was a Glenfiddich one, and it did work. It was really interesting. But most whiskies I think are more sort of for drinking when it's warmer. But if you like it chilled, again, it's up to you. Obviously then it comes on to additional mixers. Now in that case, it really is a case of what you enjoy. So if you like Coke with your whiskey, you put Coke in there. If you like ginger ale, that's quite a common one, or ginger wine I think is also quite common. Lemonade, orange, but I think that's perhaps more with vodka. I know elsewhere I hear that, like over in I think China it is, they actually drink it with green tea. Something I've never tried, but it's quite an interesting idea. When I think of the flavour profile of green tea, I could see that really working. I have had the Japanese, it was the Swedish distillery Mackmyra made a green tea whiskey, and I have to say it was amazing. So hey, you never know. And I would say with all of those, absolutely fine. If that's how you like to drink your whiskey, please do it. But I would encourage you to do what I've just shown first. Have it neat, add a little bit of water, try it like that first. You don't have to add the water. It's just good to know what it is you're drinking. And then as you mix it, try adding a bit, try it, add a bit, try it. Don't just drown it. If you just drown it, it's kind of wasted, especially if it's an expensive whiskey. Like, you might as well enjoy the whiskey. But even if it's a cheaper one, whiskey is not necessarily a cheap thing anyway. So yeah, just enjoy it however you like it. But definitely try it neat first. And that's it. So hopefully I'll see you again next week. I hope you've enjoyed this. And I'm going to sit and have a whiskey. All right, take care. Thank you. Bye.